Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? I am so fired up. It's draft week, Thursday, round one of the NFL draft. You know where we'll be. Our draft companion show will be at Don Juan Cigar Bar, hosted by presented by Rouse's. Come join us Thursday at Don Juan for the round one of the draft. Whole staff will be there. We'll look forward to seeing you all there. If you can't join us there, you can watch our coverage on the Watch 1045 ESPN YouTube channel. So y'all know I'm a nerd. I'm a draft nerd. Love the draft. Love the nuance of the draft. I'll be locked in all 3 days. The big question around the New Orleans Saints, of course, is what are you going to do at 29? Are you going to stay at that pick? Are you going to move up? People ask me every year, are the Saints going to trade back? No, they're not going to trade back. The Saints never trade back. We have enough history of the New Orleans Saints to know this is just what they do. They're not going to trade back. If anything, they're going to get aggressive and move up to get a player that they like. And they have enough draft capital this year to where they could very well do that if they see a player they like slipping. If they stay at 29, though, the big question is who will be there at 29 at their position of need. And we all know right now the Saints need interior defensive linemen. I think that goes without saying. And when you look at a lot of different mock drafts around the interwebs right now, and everyone that's putting out mock drafts, essentially everyone has the Saints taking a defensive lineman. Look, the Ringer has the Saints taking Will McDonald out of Iowa State, the defensive end. Every now and again, you'll see a Zay Flowers or something like that, but CBS Sports, Ryan Wilson has the Saints taking Myles Murphy out of Clemson. Peter King, Myles Murphy out of Clemson. Matt Miller at ESPN has taken the defensive tackle out of Northwestern, whose name I could try to pronounce, but will probably butcher. Out of Tomawa, out of Boraway. I think I have it. Probably not, though. Chad Reuter at NFL.com has him taking Myles Murphy. Michael Renner at Pro Football Focus has him taking the defensive tackle out of Northwestern, whose name I just butchered. Point is, everybody's got the Saints taking a defensive lineman because they have to have defensive linemen. We say it all the time. Saying you want to draft best available is great until you're in a draft where you have an absolute, no question, must need at the top of the draft. The example I've continued to give you is Max Unger. Max Unger suddenly retired. The Saints needed a center. They didn't have a first-round pick. They used their first pick of that draft in round 2 on Eric McCoy because they had to have a center. This is a draft where you have to have a defensive lineman. So my assumption is at 29, they're going to take a defensive lineman unless they move up to take a defensive lineman. One that's really interesting is Kalijah Cansey. And the reason that this is interesting in particular today is because there is a report from Tony Pauline of Pro Football Network, and Tony Pauline's report on the Saints and Kalijah Cansey, who is, again, the defensive lineman out of Pitt, little undersized defensive lineman. But Tony Pauline has this report today, which is, he says, I've never been high on Cansey as most, and I don't think he's a great first-round projection. The size, lack of growth potential, short arms worry me. Despite my opinion, everything I've been told in recent days points to Cansey being a lock as a first-round pick. He goes on to say, who would select him in the first round? If I was a betting man, I'd go with New Orleans. The Saints are digging deep into Cansey, burning the phone lines, talking with his coaches at Pitt recently to get as much detail as possible on the defensive tackle. Okay. A couple of things. We all know the Saints well, right? Like, if you love the franchise, you live here, you follow the franchise, you kind of know what they're looking at, what they do, what they're going to target. But I'm even perplexed by this one. What do we know about the Saints when they're drafting, in particular on the defensive line? What do we know? The Saints value the relative athletic score. It's why they moved up to take Marcus Davenport. It's why they took Peyton Turner. The Saints value, especially at that position on the defensive line, athleticism. There's a mold of an athlete that they want. I don't want to say, tape be damned, but in many respects it feels like that. Like, you didn't have tremendous production from Davenport or Peyton Turner in their collegiate careers at their small schools. You had elite athletes. Now, there's times where that works. Look at Teron Armstead. They went and took a guy who was a SWAC school player up at Pine Bluff. They recognized an incredible athlete and turned him into a franchise left tackle. Okay? So there's times it works. The problem with Kalijah Cansey is he don't fit that bill. He's 6'1", he's an interior player, 6'1", 281. The Saints put these big 300-pound space eaters in the middle. David Onyemata, Shai Tuttle. Like, think about the players that they've stuck in the middle when they've drafted Sheldon Rankins. I mean, that's what they look for. Malcolm Brown, these big, massive, heaping dudes that plug holes in the middle. Kalijah Cansey ain't that. He's 6'1", 281. So, and the flip side of it is the Saints did not host Cansey on a pre-draft visit. Remember, you can host 30 prospects on a pre-draft visit at your facility. He wasn't one of them. You're going to use a first-round pick on a guy you didn't bring into your facility? Unless if you were just that sold on the prospect and you didn't want to tip your hand. And maybe that's the case. Maybe that's the case, that this is the smoke and mirrors deal where the Saints didn't bring him in because they don't want to let on of their interest. But then here's the report that your coaches are making phone calls every day about the guy. I mean, that might allude to these. So again, that's a bit why I'm a bit perplexed on this one. Like, what do you actually believe about the Saints' interest in Kalijah Cansey? Athletically, doesn't fit the mold of what you're looking for. Saints didn't bring him in for a pre-draft workout, but here you are the week of the draft, and they're burning up the phones, trying to find out everything they can on this guy. That's interesting to me, and it's certainly a bit of an outlier. Now, there's this other argument, which is maybe it was Sean Payton. Maybe Sean Payton was the driver behind the relative athletic score and getting these guys who are just great athletes. Maybe that was it. But then again, Dennis Allen has been on staff since they brought him back from Denver. I mean, he's been here really since 2017 with his whole run. Now, he wasn't the buck didn't stop with him. He was just the defensive coordinator. He wasn't the head coach, wasn't the GM. So maybe he was overruled, and maybe they're moving into a time where he is going to have more say, especially with defensive draft picks. But it would be pretty fascinating if they draft Kalijah Cansey. Now, I want to be clear, and I've said this a bajillion times from the start of this offseason to now and will through Sunday with the draft. And when we're back here on Monday recapping whatever it is the Saints did, a giant part of me says, I trust your evaluation, so I don't care who the player is. If it's Brian Breesy or Miles Murphy or Kalijah Cansey or the young man from Northwestern or any number of defensive linemen that the Saints could draft at 29 or if they move up to take. I'm going to be consistent. As you need defensive linemen, as long as you take a defensive lineman at 29, I'm going to be really good, chances are, with whoever it is, and then also whatever you do at 40 and beyond, because you have so many needs on this team that if you trust your board and you draft good players and you stay true to your board, you're going to get players at position of need, because basically every position for this team right now is a position of need. But Kalijah Cansey, file that one away. We'll see how much interest the Saints might really have if he's on the board at 29 to the Saints pull the trigger. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.